The first thing my husband said when he asked for a divorce wasn't, "I'm sorry." It wasn't, "This is hard," or "We should talk." He leaned back in his chair, folded his arms like he was closing a business deal, and said, "I want the house, the cars, the business, everything, except the son." That was it. 9 words that erased 12 years of marriage. For a moment, I honestly thought I'd misheard him. Our kitchen still smelled like the coffee I'd just poured. Our son's backpack was by the door. Life hadn't exploded yet, but the fuse had been lit. "Excuse me?" I said. He didn't repeat himself. He just shrugged, like this was obvious, like I was being slow. "You're emotional," he added. "You won't be able to handle everything anyway." That's when I realized something important. He wasn't leaving me. He was harvesting me. His name was Daniel. To everyone else, he was charming, decisive, successful. The kind of man who spoke in boardrooms and got nods instead of questions. To me, he had always been certain he was right. Certain he was smarter. Certain I was lucky. When we married, I put my career on pause for him. When he started his business, I handled the books temporarily. When our son was born, I became the stable one so he could focus. And slowly, so slowly I didn't see it, I disappeared from my own life. So when Daniel told me he wanted everything, he wasn't bluffing. He had already rehearsed this. My lawyer begged me to fight. Actually, begged isn't strong enough. She leaned forward across the table, eyes wide, voice urgent. "Do you understand what he's asking for?" she said. "He's not offering a settlement. He's demanding surrender." "I understand," I replied. "You helped build that company," she said. "You kept the books. You structured the finances. You sacrificed your career." "I know." "You could take half," she pressed. "More than half?" I looked down at my hands. "I don't want half," I said quietly. She stared at me like I'd just confessed to a crime. "Then what do you want?" I met her eyes. "I want him to take it all." Silence. Then she shook her head. "You're in shock." "No," I said. "I'm thinking clearly for the first time in years." She pushed the paperwork back toward me. "If you do this, there's no undoing it." "I know," she sighed. "Everyone will think you've lost your mind." "I know that too." What I didn't say, what I couldn't say yet, was that Daniel's biggest weakness had always been the same thing, his confidence. The rumors started immediately. Friends, family, even people who barely knew us. She gave up everything? Why wouldn't she fight? Is she hiding something? Did he threaten her? Daniel loved it. At social events, he played the part perfectly. Concerned, regretful, noble. "I never wanted this," he told people. But she insisted. He even said it to me once, smiling like a saint. "You could have made this harder," he said. "Thank you for being reasonable." I smiled back. "You're welcome." He mistook my calm for weakness. That would be his last mistake. The divorce meetings were brutal. Daniel brought spreadsheets, charts, projections. He spoke fast, confidently, like he was explaining math to a child. "The house is in my name," he said. "The vehicles are company assets. The business is mine legally." Each sentence was a door closing. My lawyer kept glancing at me, silently asking if she should jump in. I shook my head every time. When Daniel demanded full ownership of the business, I said nothing. When he insisted I sign over my interest in the property, I nodded. When he pushed the final stack of documents toward me and said, "This just makes things easier," I picked up the pen. The room felt heavy. My lawyer's hands were clenched under the table. Daniel's mouth twitched with satisfaction. I signed. Every page, every line. At the final hearing, the judge even paused. "Ma'am," she said carefully, "do you understand what you're agreeing to?" "Yes," I replied. "Do you feel pressured?" "No." "Are you aware this leaves you with significantly less than what you're entitled to?" "Yes." The judge studied me for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Very well." Daniel exhaled like he'd just won a marathon. As we stood to leave, he leaned toward me and whispered, "You did the right thing." I looked at him and smiled. He didn't know I'd already won. What Daniel never understood was this. I didn't give up the business. I gave him responsibility for it. He didn't take the house. He took the liabilities attached to it. He didn't walk away with everything. He walked away holding a beautifully wrapped problem. And the timer had already started. But none of that was visible yet. Not to him. Not to the court. Not to anyone watching from the outside. To them, I was the woman who signed everything away. The foolish wife. the cautionary tale. That's what made the next part work. Because when everyone underestimates you, they stop watching. And that's when the truth begins to surface. Daniel moved fast after the divorce. Too fast. Within a week, he changed the locks on the house. 2 weeks later, he'd traded in one of the cars for something newer. Louder, shinier. On social media, he posted a smiling photo with our son at a restaurant. We used to save for anniversaries. New beginnings, the caption read. People congratulated him. No one asked where I was. That was exactly how I wanted it. The day after the final hearing, my lawyer called me early. I owe you an apology, she said. For what? I asked, already knowing. For assuming you were giving up, she replied. I went back through the documents last night, slowly. And? I asked. And Daniel didn't just take the business, she said. He took the debt. All of it, I smiled, because that was the part no one ever paid attention to. When Daniel started his company, it wasn't profitable. Not even close. For years, it survived on loans, credit lines, and deferred payments. On paper, it looked impressive. Revenue flowed in. Clients were big names. Growth projections sparkled. But underneath, loans tied to variable interest rates, equipment leases with brutal penalties, personal guarantees Daniel had signed without reading past the first page. And one more thing, a quiet, ticking obligation that no one but me ever tracked properly: taxes. For years, I had managed the books. Filed extensions, negotiated payment plans, balanced cash flow just enough to keep the doors open. Daniel thought that meant the business was fine. He never asked how, so when the divorce negotiations started, I did something very deliberate. I stopped explaining. At the first settlement meeting, Daniel said, I'll take full ownership of the company. Clean break. My lawyer looked at me, surprised. I nodded. Done, I said. Daniel smirked. What about the outstanding liabilities? His lawyer asked casually. Daniel waved it off. Business expenses. I'll handle them. I kept my face neutral. What he didn't realize was that handle them now meant a loan. Because the moment I signed those papers, every protection I'd quietly built vanished. The payment plans, the negotiated interest pauses, the carefully timed filings, all gone. And Daniel had no idea how fragile the whole structure really was. 3 weeks after the divorce, I got the first call. Not from Daniel. From my former accountant. I'm not sure I should be calling you, he said cautiously. You can, I replied. I'm no longer involved. He hesitated. Daniel missed a payment. I said nothing. Actually, he corrected himself, he missed 3. That didn't surprise me. Daniel hated details, hated reminders, hated anything that hinted he wasn't fully in control. Has he noticed yet? I asked. There was a pause. No, the accountant said. But the notices have been sent. Plural. Daniel noticed 2 weeks later. I know because he showed up at my apartment unannounced. I'd moved into a small place across town, quiet, temporary. Exactly the kind of downgrade people expected from a woman who lost everything. He didn't knock. He rang the bell like he was late for a meeting. When I opened the door, his smile was tight. Why didn't you tell me about the tax issue? He demanded. I tilted my head. What tax issue? Don't play dumb, he snapped. There's a lien notice. I leaned against the doorframe, calm, curious. That's strange, I said. You own the business now. That doesn't matter, he said. You handled this stuff. Handled, past tense. Yes, I agreed. When it was mine too. He stared at me, irritation flashing into something sharper. You let me walk into this, he said. No, I replied evenly. You asked to take everything. I let you. For a moment, I thought he might shout. Instead, he laughed, short, disbelieving. You think this scares me? He said. I'll fix it. He turned to leave. Daniel, I said softly. He paused. You should read the loan agreements. He didn't turn back. The next month was chaos for him. Vendors started calling, then demanding, then threatening. The variable rate loan adjusted upward. The equipment lease. Penalty triggered because he'd restructured the company without notifying them. He tried to refinance. The bank said no. He tried to sell a portion of the business. Potential buyers pulled out after due diligence. Every door he slammed shut during the divorce quietly locked behind him. And still, he thought this was temporary. Because Daniel had always believed that confidence was a substitute for preparation. The call that changed everything came on a Tuesday night. He sounded different, Not angry, afraid. They're auditing the company, he said. Full audit. I closed my eyes. Who? I asked. The CRA, he replied. They're asking about filings from 3 years ago. 3 years ago, the year I'd warned him about repeatedly. The year he told me, stop worrying. You're not the CEO. I let the silence stretch. You knew about this, he said finally. Yes, I replied. I told you. You didn't push hard enough, he snapped. I wasn't in charge, I reminded him. Remember? He exhaled shakily. What do I do? He asked. That was the moment. The pivot. The second everyone else in this story would later talk about. I don't know, I said. And for the first time in our marriage, I meant it. Daniel's lawyer called my lawyer the next day. They wanted to talk. About what? My lawyer asked. About renegotiating, his lawyer replied. My lawyer looked at me, eyebrows raised. I shook my head. No renegotiation, I said. She smiled. The audit findings were worse than Daniel expected. Penalties, back taxes, interest. The numbers stacked on top of each other like bricks. Suddenly, the business he'd proudly taken was worth less than zero. The house he'd insisted on keeping, it was collateral. The cars, leased through the company. One by one, the symbols of his victory turned into weights dragging him under. And then came the final blow. Our son. Daniel called me late one night. I can't afford the school, he said quietly. Not right now. I felt something twist in my chest, but I didn't let it show. I can, I said. Silence. I thought you had nothing, he said. I smiled to myself. I have exactly what I need, I replied. He didn't answer. People started to notice. The house went on the market. The new car disappeared. Daniel stopped posting online, and the whispers began to change direction. Did you hear? Maybe she wasn't stupid after all. Maybe she knew something. They were right, but they still didn't know everything. Because Daniel was about to learn the most painful lesson of all. He hadn't just taken debt. He'd taken responsibility for decisions he never made. And in the next part, he'd realize I'd already planned for the fallout. By the time Daniel realized he was in real trouble, the people around him had already changed. Friends who used to clap him on the back suddenly stopped answering calls. Business partners who once praised his vision began speaking in careful, legal language. Even his lawyer, confident, sharp, expensive, started asking questions he should have asked months ago. Questions Daniel didn't like. And questions I had been quietly preparing for long before the divorce papers were ever drafted. It started with a meeting Daniel didn't tell me about. I only found out because my lawyer received a subpoena, request addressed to any party with prior operational knowledge of the company. She called me immediately. They're nervous, she said. Very nervous. Why now? I asked. Because someone finally read the old agreements, she replied. That was the safeguard, the one thing I'd put in place years earlier. When I first realized Daniel didn't see me as a partner, just a convenience. 5 years into the marriage, the business nearly collapsed for the first time. Cash flow dried up overnight after a major client pulled out. Daniel panicked. I stayed calm. While he chased emergency funding, I did something quieter. I met with a lawyer. Not a divorce lawyer, a corporate one. I didn't tell Daniel. I didn't need his permission. My name was already attached to enough of the back-end work to justify the consultation. What happens? I asked. If the person running the company makes reckless decisions? The lawyer leaned back, thought carefully. Then whoever carries fiduciary responsibility can be exposed, she said. And if that person doesn't understand the risk? I asked. Then the paperwork matters more than intent, she replied. That sentence stayed with me, because Daniel never read paperwork. At the lawyer's recommendation, I made one small change. Just one. I created a contingency clause. Buried deep. Perfectly legal. Signed during a refinancing round. Daniel barely skimmed because he was too busy celebrating the approval. The clause stated that in the event of unilateral ownership, transfer, divorce included, all prior, liability protections dissolved unless reaffirmed, by written consent of the operational manager. That manager was me. Daniel never noticed. Why would he? He trusted me to handle details. Fast forward to the present. The divorce finalized, ownership transferred, protections gone. And now, during the audit, Daniel's lawyer had finally stumbled onto the clause. That was why they wanted to talk. That was why they were panicking. You never mentioned this, Daniel accused me over the phone. You never asked, I replied. This could ruin me, he said. I was quiet for a moment. Yes, I agreed. It could. The meeting was held in a neutral office downtown. Daniel looked older, thinner. His confidence had cracks now. Small, but visible. His lawyer did most of the talking. "We believe there's room for cooperation," she said carefully. "If you're willing to sign a reaffirmation, we can limit exposure." My lawyer looked at me. I shook my head. "No," I said. Daniel slammed his hand on the table. "You're enjoying this." I met his eyes. "No," I said calmly. "I'm surviving it." Silence. "You took everything from me," he said. I almost laughed. "No," I corrected. "You took everything from yourself. I just stopped protecting you." That was the moment his lawyer understood. She didn't argue. She didn't threaten. She just closed her folder slowly. After that, things moved fast. The CRA expanded the audit. Banks froze credit lines. A civil claim was filed by a former vendor who realized Daniel was now personally exposed. One domino tipped another, and then another. Daniel tried to sell the house. Buyers backed out when they learned it was tied to pending liabilities. He tried to negotiate child support reductions. The judge denied it. He tried to move assets. Too late. Every move he made now left a trail. One night, Daniel showed up again. Not angry this time. Broken. "I don't understand," he said quietly. "How did you plan this?" I looked at him for a long moment. "I didn't plan revenge," I said. "I planned for reality." He sat down heavily. "I thought you were weak," he admitted. I nodded. "I know. That's why this hurts," he said. I didn't respond, because the truth was simpler than he wanted it to be. I had never been weak. I had been patient. The call from my lawyer came a week later. "They're offering a settlement," she said. "Not to you." "From him." "What kind?" I asked. "Full liability assumption. Public acknowledgement of your non-involvement. And an apology." I closed my eyes. "And custody?" I asked. "He's willing to revisit it," she said. "On your terms." That was the line. The one thing I'd never negotiated with myself. "Draft it," I said. When the settlement was finalized, it didn't make headlines. There was no dramatic courtroom scene, no public humiliation, just paperwork. The kind Daniel used to ignore. But this time, every signature mattered. The business folded 6 months later. Quietly, Daniel took a job with a smaller firm. No ownership, no spotlight. And I rebuilt, slowly, carefully, on my own terms. But the story wasn't over yet. Because there was still one final moment, one last realization Daniel hadn't had. And in the final part, he would finally understand what he had really taken, and what it had cost him. Daniel thought the worst part was over once the settlement was signed. That was the mistake everyone makes. They think consequences arrive loudly, sirens, shouting, courtroom drama. They imagine collapse as something sudden and public. But real loss is quieter than that. It settles in slowly, and by the time you feel it, there's nothing left to negotiate. The day Daniel signed the final agreement, he looked relieved. Not happy, not proud, relieved, like someone who'd escaped a burning, building without realizing the fire was still inside him. "You got what you wanted," he said to me outside the lawyer's office. I hope it was worth it. I didn't answer. Because if I spoke, I might have told him the truth too early. And Daniel had always hated hearing the truth. The custody adjustment went through first. Not dramatic. Not contested. He didn't fight it. He couldn't afford to. Our son moved in with me full-time. Daniel told people it was temporary. That he was focusing on rebuilding. But children notice things adults pretend not to see. They notice when promises stop coming. When weekends get canceled. When phone calls become shorter. Our son didn't ask questions at first. He just adapted. Quietly. Just like I once had. The business officially closed 3 months later. No announcement. No farewell emails. Just a notice filed and a line item erased from Daniel's life. The same business he'd once bragged about building from nothing. The same business he'd taken in the divorce like a trophy. It didn't ruin him instantly. That came later, when he realized how much of his identity had been tied to it. I ran into Daniel by accident one afternoon at the grocery store. He looked ordinary. Not defeated. Not broken. Just smaller. We exchanged polite nods. Nothing more. As I walked away, I heard him say my name. I turned. "I finally understand," he said. I waited. "You didn't give me the business," he continued. "You gave me the consequences." I said nothing. "And I didn't just take assets," he added quietly. "I took responsibility for choices I didn't even know I was making." That was as close to accountability as he'd ever get. I thought you lost everything, he said. But you didn't. No, I replied. I let go of what was already costing me. He nodded slowly, and for the first time since I'd known him, there was no arrogance left, only clarity. Here's the part people never talk about. When you give someone everything, you also give them the weight of it. The stress, the debt, the decisions, the history. Daniel didn't just take the house, the cars, and the business. He took the sleepless nights, the liability, the risk, the responsibility of pretending everything was fine. I walked away with peace, and peace, it turns out, compounds faster than money ever does. A year later, my life looks nothing like it used to. I work again, on my own terms. I sleep through the night. I laugh more than I ever did during my marriage. And my son, he's thriving. One night while we were doing homework, he looked up at me and asked, "Mom, why did Dad want everything?" I thought for a moment. Because he thought it would make him feel powerful, I said. And did it? He asked. I smiled gently. No, I replied. It just showed him who he really was. People still ask me if I regret not fighting harder in the divorce, if I wish I'd taken more, if I feel like I lost. I always answer the same way. I didn't lose anything I wanted to keep. Because the truth, the real truth, is this. Winning isn't about what you take. It's about what you don't carry anymore. Daniel took everything, and only when it was too late did he realize he had taken exactly what broke him.